We know they're out there. And we know we need to find them. We target them for different reasons. But when the line tightens, we all feel the same. We feel alive. The water moves around us and the world feels far away. We are here. We are fishing. It is a search, not just for fish, but for all things most important. For family and friends. For tradition and tranquility. For conservation and competition. All of us find what we are looking for. Yet we continue searching. We cast, and as the lure soars, our hopes soar with it. This will be the one. They tell us insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. But we are not insane. The fish are still out there, and we are fishermen. We have been since we were young, and will be until we can do no more. And then, when the ice begins to freeze within us, we will
What are them sons of fishes up to now?
Fellas, I give you the force trolling motor. It is the most powerful, the most efficient on the water.
Yep. Most powerful. We're really in trouble now.
And it's quiet, too. You can't swim here.
What a dumb bass.
Well, here we are, another Wednesday night at the ABT and Fishing Monthly headquarters. This is ABT Lockdown Live number 14. Yep, 14 shows since we started this concept, right at the start of lockdown back in, I think it must have been March or April, and we're still running it. Even though we're still running tournaments, we know our brothers down in Victoria are still struggling, and guys, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We know you're going to be able to go fishing again soon, but hopefully we can provide you a little bit of entertainment on a Friday night. It is a Wednesday night. Thank you from the producer out the side there. It is Wednesday night. So we're not fighting against the football. And of course, because I live in Brisbane, I don't care about rugby league anymore. It's all about the AFL because we're better at that than rugby league at the moment. Shout outs tonight. We've got a shout out for Big Robbie Neeshaw, our ABT stats man. It's his birthday at the moment. Whack a comment down below and say, happy birthday, Rob. Maybe he'll give you a few more rankings or AOY points next time through. Don't know how it all works like that. And like always, while we're commenting, whether it's on the Facebook or the YouTube audience, let us know where you're from. We love the fact that we've got people from all over Australia and in fact all over the world watching. Write down where you're from in the comments. We've got some serious merchandise to give away tonight. I haven't pre-made the packs. Basically, you get enough of that to stuff into a prepaid post pack. Got a couple of those to give away tonight, but of course, like every week, we want to know where you're from because we can then load you up with some great prizes. We've got a pretty good show tonight. Since the last show, we've had the Samaki BREAM Queensland Open. Anyone who followed it on the ABT website or ABT socials knows that that was actually a draw. but was one that Scott Sanderlands got up over Charlie Sakeo on. There was some great videos and some great highlights on this ABT channel or on the Facebook page. In both of those, you can look in the archives and find that coverage. Also, we've had one of the Bass Electric tournaments at Boogerra. Really windy day down there, tough day, but Adrian Wilson took his 4th Bass Electric victory. We have the winner's interview for that also on the YouTube channel here. And of course, just on the weekend, Joey Urquhart ran the Bass Electric tournament on the Richmond. Thought we mightn't even get 10 competitors for that because all the people from Queensland couldn't come down. But guess what? 17 anglers turned up there, and Matty Flynn, I think, ended up winning it on a crankbait, fishing some of his home waters. So all of those results, of course, on abt.org.au. Now, if you want more detailed written reports with all the photos and results, they all live in your Fishing Monthly magazine. If you're an ABT member, you should get the link to the free digital copy of that magazine with your newsletter every month. If you're not getting the newsletter, first look in your spam folder on your email, or secondly, give us a yell. We'll just make sure that we've got your email address right in your ABT membership. In that email is normally a free voucher code so that you can read this literally 2 hours after it goes to the printer and get the latest information first. Coming up in the next month, we've got a fairly epic road trip. We're pretty excited at the ABT office. We've been working to get magazines finished and stuff all out of the road so that we can do the BREAM, Bass and Barra road trip. And that, of course, the 3 Bs are the foundations of all of ABT's tournament. We've got the Mercury BREAM qualifier at Gladstone. We already have more entries than last year. I think it was 16 or 17 boats last time I looked. Last year, those guys fishing that event registered over 500 fish on the app, and this is an app-only event in 2 days of fishing. It was crazy good fishing. Just had a message from Kurt Hutchby before. You may know Kurt or you may not know. He used to run the hatchery that bred all the barra that go in Lake Awoonga. He said bring plenty of top waters and plenty of crankbaits because the bite is going pretty well at the moment. So if you're not entered that yet and you want to come and you're in Queensland, fill out an entry form. We're going to take entries until the day we leave this office. From there, we are going to go across to an event which is everyone's really excited about this year. It's the Venom Rods Barra Australian Open. Last year, 14 teams. As of tonight, we have 25 teams for that and rising. 100% payback event. 25 teams means there's $12,500 cash in the prize pool. We've got some great Venom rods, and later on, is it this show? We're going to show what the booty is? No, we have Troy is going to show us. That's right. In the segment, Troy is going to show us all of the swag that all the Barra teams get. Speaking of swag, Timmy Morgan's on the show later on to show all the swag that the bass guys get in the Queensland Open Bass later on. And of course, that's the 3rd tournament we have in one road trip. It's the Rapala Bass Queensland Open. It's at Cania. It's in spring. Bite should be epic. We already have 19 entered for that Queensland Open and a further 16 entered for the New South Wales Open. Now remember, those open events, boater only. Bring your own boat, fish by yourself, 5 fish limits with the permit we have in New South Wales, but it's a 5 fish limit in Queensland anyway. Run in parallel. So that same day that everyone's fishing in Cania, the New South Wales guys will be fishing in Lake Glenbourne. Hopefully we'll have 50, 60, 70, 80 boats fishing that combined weekend. And we are not going to let COVID get in the road of an open event happening. Of course, on tonight's show, I've hinted that we've got Troy and Adam, the current Barra Open champions. They're coming to join us to take us through some tactics. We've got Dan Grech and John Millard, who caught a ridiculous 5.86 metres of Barra and 5.85 metres of Barra, I think, each to win an event. The record-breaking event back in the late 2000s. They're going to talk to us about that epic night of double hookups on $20s. We have Tommy Deere, ABT's, I think, most travelled fisherman who he is watching on YouTube right now. Good to see you, Tommy and Bridget up there. Tommy's going to talk to us about what a clever move it was of his to get stuck in Queensland and not down in South Australia. We've got Timmy Morgan, as I said, later on, talking about through some of the opens. We've got a special Show Us Your Boat segment with one of Victoria's favourite bream anglers. We'll let you see who that is later in the show. And we've got a different segment tonight. I've picked out a top 5 highlights of the 5 favourite moments that I've seen on the ABT cameras we've had come in. So we'll talk through some of those and some of those epic catches. And then to clear out the room at the end of the night, we've got some stuff about Daiwa's Bait Junkie release. We've already released it on YouTube, but that 15 minutes of footage should definitely get you off and watching the 8:30 movie. In amongst that, we've got another comp today, but remember the first comp is tell us where you're from in the comments. You could win some of this great ABT swag. I think the second comp I'm going to start it now as well, because we mentioned it in the Facebook post. We want to know what to call this trophy. Jeff is the Queensland Open trophy. We haven't got a name for the Australian Open BREAM trophy yet, but this perennial champion team trophy for the Venom BARRA Australian Open hasn't been named yet. If it had, there would be a name written on the bottom of it there. So let's pick a name for it tonight. We're going to pick it, put the name in the comments there and impress us. And I'll give you a handful of that swag there, as much as I can stuff in the Australia Post pack. We're going to drop to maybe a couple of messages from some valuable ABT sponsors. And when you come back, I will magically be talking with Troy, Dixon and Adam Meredith on the interweb.
What do you see?
Reminds me of muskies.
I love your mind.
They call it a bucket mouse because he's got a bucket mouth.
Wow.
I just want to tell you, I've been slaying the walleye lately.
That is so hot.
Ever bump the stump?
Suffix 832, the line that changes the game.
Well, as promised in ABT Lockdown Live, we have got them here, the 2019 Venom Rods Barra Australian Open champions, Dicko and Adam. You guys stole the Australian Open last year with 11 out of 15 fish for 37 kilos. First question to you guys is, are you going to defend it with another 37 kilos this year? You reckon that's going to be enough to take the title?
No,
not at all.
no way. Not at all. I reckon the average fish will be about 90 centimetres.
Well, last year we were hoping that we were going to hit it right on, and we got hit by a cold snap just before the tournament, and it sort of shut the fish down. But we were smart enough this year to move the dates back a little bit. We're going to fish that full moon at the end of September rather than the one at the beginning of September. What's the word that you guys have heard from the dam as to how it's been fishing? Because I know you're about to duck off on a big fishing trip now, but in the back of your mind is Barra Australian Open. What have you been hearing from your guys at the lake?
I don't know. I went up there last weekend and didn't get a bite. So that's my good pre-fish. So, yeah.
The water's been very clear. So it's being that month later, I think this year's going to be a massive help with water temperature and, a few different things change. It'll fire. From
what I've seen on social media over the last 2 weeks, a week and a bit, it's starting to come alive. So I think we're primed to have a really good comp. So touch wood.
That's awesome. Now, Adam, you work in the tackle warehouse there, of course, where the trophy has been living for the last year. I picked it up. I came and repossessed it the other day to get your name.
Yes, you took it off. Yep.
There was a little bit of dust sitting on it, so I've given it a bit of a clean up. But you're selling tackle to guys that are heading north for Barra all the time. What's your take on how these southern dams are picking up with the warmer weather?
Oh, they're going to go off this year, Steve. Seriously, it's the ingredients are all there. We saw last year how there was a lot of sort of those smaller 70 centimetre plus fish, another 12 months on. Also, too, with the lockdowns and all this COVID stuff going on, a lot of people are going to want to fish at home this year over the Christmas break, over summer. So the southern dams are going to, they're going to be busy, but there's plenty of fish there, I reckon.
There's lots of fish.
It's going to go off. It's going to be big.
Well, that's awesome because right now I'm going to put a cutaway on the screen of some screenshots from Justin Nye's Garmin LiveScope. And there are just swarms of barramundi looking pretty active and swimming all over the place. So, those eyes under the water are getting Justin excited. Now, of course, we use Justin, who's one of the Wilson's protein guys. He helps us choose the date. And I just go to Justin and I said, Justin, if you're going to run a tournament for the best time of the year at Awoonga where we've got the best chance of whacking them, and he gave me these dates. So all competitive stuff aside, what's your inside word from the man up there, from your man Justin? There's got to be something you can give us here.
What's he giving you, Diggo?
He's giving me nothing. No, he's nothing. No, he's
It's Steve. A lot of these guys go very quiet a few weeks out before these events. They just shut up shop. So they're busy working on what they're going to do, I think.
That's fair enough because one of the things I've learned in tournament fishing over 20 years is don't believe anything anyone says the day before the tournament because it's all rubbish. Now, last year we fished this event with 14 teams, which gave us a $7,000 prize pool. At the time we were recording this, we've got 21 teams at the moment, which gives us over $10,000 prize pool. The unique feature about this tournament is, of course, that Venom rods, it underwrites the running of this tournament so that we can give back 100% of the entry fees in prizes, and then you guys beef it up with some pretty awesome product. Now, we've got some Venom rods for the top place teams, but we've also got a lot of, the Xeric lures and some of the baits that you think are going to kill it on the weekend. Just run us through what you're going to be bringing up that everyone gets a handful of.
So this one here is the old fish trap. The 110 fish trap. So we got quite a few of them to give away, and that's a given lure in any of the dams on the East Coast. And then the trusty old live mullet, which did unbelievably last year after we did the Barra Open. It just went gangbusters. And then we got the
Big Tango Shad.
Big Tango Shad, the 89 mil Tango Shad in a suspending model.
Flicker in the timber and flat shad.
And then the old flat shad.
Throw it in. Never get it snagged.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of that.
Or rig it up with a jig head and add all sorts of pointy bits and pieces to it.
So whenever I talk to people about what sort of assortment of bait should I take up to Woonga, they'll say, oh, you better take a soft vibe, you better take a jerk bait, you better take a bait that you can slow roll. Like, you've basically got everything the guys are going to need covered in that selection because those are the baits that are selling for you in that region, aren't they?
That's it. That's 100% right. So, yeah, all of those baits there have been catching fish in Awoonga, so, which is... really good for us, and
they'll work in any other dam as well, of course.
Now, I want you to run through this, of course, is the Venom Rods Barra Australian Open. We have this thing in ABT where sponsored teams always have pretty good karma, and you guys fished as Team Venom last year, and you ended up winning the event. Now, I want you to run through maybe a couple of the Venom rods that you guys are going to be taking up and rigging up there to try and defend your title. Like, of course, the Venom rods, they're an Australian-made rod. You make them, in your factory there, and you chew them
right through that door over there.
So take us through a couple of the models that you're going to have on your boat.
So this one here that I've got here is the Venom crankbait. It's a 2 to 4 PE crankbait, 6'3". So ideal, bit of a mixture. You can still crack hard bodies and stuff with it, but you can still use it for vibing and throwing those. It's a bit of an all rounder, really.
Yes, perfect all rounder.
So and then we've got there's a version of this in a spin model as well, but it's slightly longer, so it's at 6'5", which is really good for if you like spinning rods. But then we've got 7 foot. We've got swim bait rods. We pretty much got in that Venom range for barra fishing. We pretty much got the whole thing covered, like from 1.5 handed cork gripped, your old school bait casting rods, right through to, your big swim bait rods, which, our big swim bait rod is just, it's a weapon for any of these dams, especially when you're fishing out on those big open points. Well, you've used it yourself. You know what it's like. You can throw those big plastics and you can throw them a mile. So.
And that's one of the rods there that I used last year, just for rolling weedless plastics and things, as well as hard bodies in the sticks, and it just worked perfectly. You do so many things with that particular rod.
And it's got plenty of grunt.
Oh, don't be afraid of getting into it.
Yep.
Plenty of grunt.
One thing I noticed with the Venom rods is I pick them up and I expect them actually to be a lot heavier than they are. I don't know if it's a preconception about locally built rods, but man, they are light in the hand. And even the big rods, even the big swim bait rod, it's designed with really good balance so that you can sling that thing all day and you don't get as tired as you think you're going to get. Like, how much input have you had into that, Dicko? You've wielded that rod for many Barra tours now. It's in the technique, isn't it? The little light rods, you can crack a hard body with no worries, but those big rods are actually easy to swing when you get your technique right.
Yeah. Oh, mate, that big rod, it's perfectly designed for throwing. We designed that around the codfishers guys with those big, they're throwing 250 mil long walking baits and big swim baits and things like that. So it had to be able to throw one of those things really comfortable. And I've just gone into a 7-inch flat shads and 9-inch flat shads, throwing them on the Barra, and it just becomes like my arm in the end. You can just keep casting and casting and casting.
That's your Faust special, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it up there. Yeah.
That's right. No, Dicko, you are what we call now a Barra tour addict. You come on all the tours.
Yeah.
You catch a lot of fish on there. What I want is, you fished with Adam in the Australian Open to win that title, but you often will fish with a client or someone else you rotated in the Barra Tour a fair bit. What's the number one bit of advice that you've got for someone that might be sitting in Brisbane and saying, you know what, I can't go down to New South Wales. I'm going to go give this Barra event a crack. What's your bit of advice for someone who's given it a go? Because we know that you've been up there pre-fishing and it's going to totally change in a couple of weeks between when you were there and when you're there next time. If you get onto the fish when you're up there, you can have a session of a lifetime. What's your advice for a punter that mightn't have much confidence, but they want to go and give it a go? What's your advice to them?
Mate, my one bit of advice is to pick a location and just stick to it. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you've got fish showing, just stick to it. They will bite eventually.
Just work it.
And that's what we did last year. We picked the location that we picked was the one that we got one bite off it in our pre-fish, but we saw fish there. So we just stuck to it, and everyone else, you could see them driving around the dam. And when that bite period came, it only lasted for an hour at the most, and it was just on, one after another, bite. If you weren't getting a bite, you were sort of catching a fish. But that's one good key thing, is just pick an area and stick to it.
Don't be moving around at prime time, at dusk and things like that, which people were doing. It's just pick a spot you think looks good. If you see fish on a sounder, they'll bite. They will bite.
Eventually.
And that is awesome advice, because I was one of those idiots running around like a madman, mate. I was going from catfish to turtle to catfish. So I will take your advice there, guys, because I would be silly if I didn't listen to the current Open champions. Now, with this event, we can't do it like we did last year, where we had a big briefing, we get everyone there and everyone's giving each other a hug. We can't do it this year with the COVID rules, but we do have a briefing between 8:30 and 10 a.m. at the Complete Angler Gladstone on the Tuesday morning before the comp. So you're going to make sure that shop is stocked up with all of the bits and pieces guys are going to need if they need to do some last minute shopping, Dicko? You're going to make sure it's all
mate, I'm hoping they're already stocked with it. So yeah. Yeah, no, they should be right. They're good guys there, so they should have plenty of stock there.
That's awesome. So anyone that's watching this, maybe some anglers that are up there doing the Costa BREAM series, we've got the BREAM event before it, and then of course after the Australian Open, we've got the Rapala Bass Queensland Open up at Cania. So if you've got some time on your hands, guys, you can go and you can fish a BREAM event, a Barra event, and a Bass event all in a 10-day period. I've signed up for it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to get all the fishing out of my system for the last few months of all this COVID rubbish. Going to do all of those 3 species. And I'm going to try my best to take the title off you guys, but there are going to be over 20 other teams doing that as well. What's your final pick for the number of teams we're going to have? We're already at 21. You reckon we're going to get to 30 by the event?
Be good if we did.
And if anyone's in Brisbane or Southeast Queensland and wants to come and have a look at some of this gear or have a chat, please come and see me, Tackle Warehouse in Brisbane. I'd love to have a talk to you about it. I live for this. I love it.
Yeah, you do, mate. You pretend you don't like it, but you're pretty excited. I saw the tear in your eye when I was walking out with your trophy the other day, mate.
Yeah.
Mate, another
Wasn't
couple
happy.
of weeks, you might be reunited with it. So, yes, definitely drop in and see it at Tackle Warehouse. It has got an absolute pile of all of the sponsors' gear, but also all gear. If you haven't got it, you can't get it, can you?
Pretty much so.
Right. Mate, anything fishing, go to Tackle Warehouse, that's for sure.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to come and have a chat to us on ABT Lockdown Live. I'm pretty sure by the time this goes to air, you'll be out at the Swains somewhere catching fish. But while you're doing that, all the other guys are practicing catching barra. So just have a think about that, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.
Great addition to the Venom range of rods is this little beauty. It's a 6 kilo barra spin and it fills a great little spot in the Venom family. It's short, which makes it so versatile for flicking plastics under tight structure, for jigging beneath the boat. Very, very strong. I've tested it out on big sharks, also those subtle styles of fishing, jigging soft plastics and playing with barramundi. I've put it through its paces and it goes to prove that great things can come in small packages. Oh, gotcha. No! Oh, there you go, got him. It's a barramundi. Yes. Towards you. Yes. Yes. It's a serious weight, isn't it? Whatever it is, he's a solid fish. Oh, I lost him. Yes, yes, yes. Yep, got him. Oh, stay. It's a big fish, man. It's a big fish. Yep. I'm calling it. Get him in the net. Get him, Johnny. Get him, Johnny. Yes.
Well, there you go. There's a great bit of insight from Dicko and Adam, the current Barra Open champions. But while we're on the theme, I suppose, of Awoonga, there was an event which popped out to us as being an absolute classic. I'm not going to give too much away about it, but after you watch this segment, or while you're watching this segment, if you think there is an absolute ABT classic event that we need to talk about, to talk to the winners, to reminisce about how good they did back in the day, put a comment below. We'll follow it up and we'll talk to these dudes. But with no extra introduction, let's go and have a chat to Dan Grech and John Millard about the most epic night of tournament barra fishing ever. All right, I've got two absolute barra legends with me, and we're trying something new on Lockdown Live tonight. We're trying a three-way conference here. I've got Dan Grech, you're dialing in from Mackay somewhere, and Johnny Millard, you're a bit further north, aren't you? Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Now, the reason I got these guys on board is because we do a segment here called Classic Events or Classic Tournaments, and we sit here racking our brain, thinking back through the 20 years of ABT, going, what are some key moments where some cool shit really happened? And this one definitely popped out. We printed out the report from it. It was in 2009. It was a 2009 Daiwa Lake Awoonga Night Championships. It says in the first sentence of this story, it produced a session of red-hot fishing, in turn rewriting the ABT Barramundi record books. Now, the previous 5-fish limit before this night of fishing that you had was 5 fish for 5.14 metres in the old centimetre scale. Of course, we use weights now. You guys came in with 5 from 5 for 5.83 centimetres. So you beat the old record collectively by about 70 centimetres. I want to have a bit of a talk about how epic that night was, and I don't really want to have much to do with it. I want you guys to relay to the people that are watching this show tonight, how good is a night of barra fishing when you're lining up double hookups of $20s? Who's going to start?
You can go first, Greg.
Right.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, right. It was, yeah, like, you got to understand, like, the whole context of the Barra Tour back in those days was 2-week events, one after the other, of comp after comp after comp. So you basically had to take a month off work to pre-fish into these comps. And, yeah, I remember that the night before that comp, it was just insane. Like we just basically went around to every point and started to cast and had 2 or 3 casts, and basically every point we went to, we caught a metre fish off it. And I remember we picked that particular point because we went there and Johnny had caught one and it was like a metre 15 and all the rest of them were a metre 10. So like that was the reason why we ended up settling on that one point. And then from there, the night, like into the night, we caught nothing sort of, little stuff or whatever in the afternoon. And then as the evening got on, by 9 o'clock, there was just side imaging was quite new. Like it was, we all had it, but it just starting to kick into gear and understanding it. And you just see these shadows coming through that look like whales. And then we were chucking up onto 8 foot of water and working these X-Raps down. It was just basically one fish after another. And the fish just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And we didn't know when they were going to stop getting bigger. And it was, I think we caught 20 something fish. And like there was like 1 or 2 90s in it, and that was it. The rest of them were over a metre. So we knew that we'd had like a good night. But yeah, now looking back at it, there's at one point there, I remember I cast there, I hooked up, it's gone straight up the river, which is sort of underneath the anchor rope, and gone out that way. And Johnny's chucked out again. And he's gone, yep, I'm on. And then it's done exactly the same thing. And then here we are fighting backwards and forwards, going under and over each other. And I landed one, and then Johnny was fighting his, and he's leaned over and scooped up my fish. And then we picked it up, and it took 2 of us to pick it up while Johnny's still fighting this fish on the other side. And we put that on the deck, and then Johnny's was there. And we picked that up, put that on the deck, and we were like, holy shit, they're the same size. We rolled out the brag mat, and the metre 20, mine's hitting the metre 20 and Johnny's hitting the metre 20, and we're going, holy shit, we just had a double hookup of metre 20 fish. And just, like those moments, like me and Johnny have been lucky enough to have 2 double hookups of metre 20s. We had another one at Faust. But, those moments, that was in a comp, and to get a 2 metre 20 fish in an individual comp, doesn't matter. It was just unbelievable. Like the fishing was just too good for such a long night. Just too good. It was just, unreal.
So the night itself, was that the all-nighter where everyone's fishing all night, or was it the one where you finish fishing it late in the evening?
Johnny, you go.
Yeah, this one was it was actually a combination. The all-nighter was probably the best one. And the thing is, at the time, the dam was like proper going off, like Grech had just said. So I think it was a combination of things. Like, I don't think you could get a better spot when everything was just going perfectly right. Like when we were pre-fishing, as he said, like we'd like stop at a point and literally stop there. Well, it'd be 5 or 10 minutes, like cast out to go across it and literally hook a metery. And that spot there itself was just like the proper setup on the best time when everything was set up. And that night, like we were talking before about it, the all-nighter, everything just set up right, the way the breeze was blowing, and just everything was the perfect scenario, just like bang the shit out of it. It was ridiculous. So it was both sessions, and like we were talking before, on the second tournament, which was the afternoon sessions, we sat there waiting for bites, and it literally took, it was like typical barra fishing. As soon as the breeze, we caught like nothing until the breeze snapped around to the right direction. And like we were talking before, in an hour and a half, we like filled our bags the second day. But that whole night, everything was just perfect, and it was one fish after the other. And it was a case of like hooking one up, and if you dropped it, another one needed on the way back to the boat. It was just ridiculous.
So you wouldn't even get to retrieve your lure back in. It'd like get crushed.
It just ate it again. It was it was off tap. It was as good as it gets.
Now, I'm just going to go through some of the results, and the results are here, and we do it with weight now, so it's a little bit different. But the way the weight curve works is the bigger they get, the heavier they get. So I'd have to go back and do some calculations to see what sort of epic weight you would have got for this event. But Grechy, you won this event with 5 fish for 5.83 metres. Jason Crofts comes second with 5.82 metres, and John Millard, you tied for second there with 5.82 as well. So there was 1 centimetre between you, and all 3 of you had beaten the record by about 70 centimetres. I want you to run through, like when you're talking about the fisher hitting it and then another one hitting on the way in, just run through what lure were you using and just the actual retrieve that was doing the job for you.
well, back then it was like we were chucking extracts pretty good, and that's it. Our extract 12 suspenders, and like we used a few different colors. Greg, it was like I think we'd stay at the more naturals when it was like more light, and then sort of shift towards the whiter colors when it got dark. In saying that, it was that like mental that it didn't really matter at the time. But like we went through a lot of lures too that night. Like it was off tap.
What was the retrieve?
We used to mix it up, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like
We used to do sort of 10 casts of one of sort of tweak, and then a pause, tweak, and then a pause. Then we used to do tweaks flat out, so no pause in it. And I think on that night, I think that was the retrieve that was getting them. It's got to keep moving. And we were using colours. Like I got the lure here. It's on my key ring. That's how important it is to me. But it's the spotted minnow one. So it looks like a garfish, basically. It's blue on top with spots down the side of it and a chrome finish on the inside. So it looks like a garfish. That's the deal. But, as Johnny said, like you'd lose one and you'd be cranking it in and they'd come and eat it on the crank in. So you hook up a metery on a flat burn on the way in after just jumping one off. So they were just, like as Johnny said, the spot itself was probably the most, like when you think about it now, and even for years after it, it was like the pinnacle of spots. And it was only like that for that year. It wasn't like that for any other year afterwards. The dam had gone up and down and it was never the same. But, like it just had a 60-foot creek line on one side, a 60-foot creek line on the other, came up onto like a 20-foot flat. And then the point itself just had a weed edge on it that caught the wind. So the fish would just cruise down one side, we'd intercept them, and then Crofty was on the outside of us. You'd intercept them in that 8 to 10 foot range, perfect for an X-Wrap. And they were sitting so high. Like, Johnny, remember the sound images of them just being right across the top, basically blanking out the whole sounder. They were just enormous shapes on the inside of us majority of the time. So they're coming through on the inside, then sweeping around the bend and dropping into the creek bed. But one that needed that wind to push them along that edge and then sweep them out. But yeah, unreal.
Yeah.
Let's have a bit of a look at the list of people that you left behind you in that event. Cy and Karen Taylor, obviously, some of the most decorated barra anglers in those times. Cy Taylor had 5 for 5 metres 55. Jace Wilhelm, who was he was a guide and a gun on that lake, 5 for 546. Jason Ehrlich, 5 for 545. We moved down the list and I see you cleaned up Moddy, 5 for 5 metres. He would have been a bit cocky when he got into the ramp saying he got 5 metres. Just tell us about that little conversation you had with him at the ramp.
Yeah, it was funny. And Moddy was like, we were no gurus at sort of that stage. We weren't well known or anything like that. And we come in and we parked up and Moddy's there saying, we got 5 metres. It's going to be tough to beat. And then there's kind of it kind of like, we didn't even really think about it. We knew we'd done well, and we're like, we got. They're all over 5. They're all over 1.10 meters. So we must have got 550. And the look on Moddy's face, he's like, I knew someone smashed him out there. I knew someone smashed him. You see the colour just drained from his face, and like back in those days, a 5 metre bag is a good bag. It's a unreal bag.
514, wasn't it? So anything over 5 metres was near the old record. Let's go through and have a look. As we had Carl Jochimson in that field, came 15th with 5 for 4.89 metres. There's plenty of names all the way through there. And back in 34th here, we got Craig Griffiths. 2 for 77. He's learned how to catch barra since, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's it.
I think he went out there again, didn't he, Grech?
Yeah.
He went out and got into him where we caught him. Like a lot of people did, actually.
Yeah.
Wanted a piece of it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's how you learn as a barra fisherman, isn't it? You got to find out where you go wrong and you got to correct it. Look, I think it was an awesome night on tour. Grechy, I remember something else from you as well. I remember watching an AFC episode. You were fishing with Phoenix Boats owner Gary Klaus, who was out from America fishing on Lake Kinchin, and you caught something that you weren't allowed to measure in. Who did you catch?
Well, he caught me. So we were fishing. We were about an hour into the session. We'd caught one fish, and we were overfishing a weed bed, and we'd switched over to surface. And he'd had a bad run. Like the Customs had crashed all his rods. They'd squished his rod tubes, and he had a 15 or something St. Croix rods. And you imagine, he's a well-off sort of dude, so they're all the top of the line St. Croix. So, And also all these 7-foot rods were now 5.5 foot. And then an hour into the comp, I just remember this, like, it's like I'd been punched in the back of the head, like hit me right there. And, 2 hooks in on the back hook and then 1 hook in the front hook. And, and the cameraman got it all on footage. And I was dazed, to be honest. And it took me sort of half an hour to work out what had happened and then worked out how we're going to get the hooks out. Anyway, I ended up fishing with 1 hook still in my head. And then we sort of got the front hook out. But I had kind of crushed the barbs on them, so luckily that definitely helped. But yeah, I had blood all down my good AFC shirt, and my hat was all busted up, and there was blood dripping down here. None of it made the show, but Jesus, it was painful.
Yeah, indeed. And he started catching fish after that. He just needed to get the scent on the lure, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. A bit of blood on there.
Plugging it up.
Guys, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to do it. Are there any other moments before we finish up from that comp or from any of the Barra Tour events that really stick in your memory? Because I know a lot of guys catch a big fish in the Barra Tour. It pumps them and they remember it for a long time afterwards.
It's pretty hard when you're comparing it to a session like that. We've had plenty of good sessions together, like in the different dams, that sort of thing. But when you're something, it just blew everything out of the water, like compared to anything else you can have. And like, there's plenty of good sessions we've had, but that one's just like it kills it.
Awesome. Now, I know that Awoonga isn't in the same state it was back then. The fish that were all $1.20 then are probably all meteries now. It's a couple of years from getting back to that situation. But we have the Venom Rods Barra Australian Open at Lake Awoonga in a few weeks. What tips have you got for the guys that are going to be fishing that? Like, I know you say you were fishing a point, but if you were going to go back and just fish it without any pre-fish this year, what would be your tips for the anglers fishing?
Probably wouldn't be too much different, I think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. It'd probably just the time in the water, eh? Honestly, that was the biggest thing that used to get Johnny and I through was just we used to spend so much time on the water, and it's leading up to it as well. Like, it's not about doing it a month in advance, because at this time of the year a month in advance means nothing, because it changes the water temperature so much. But yeah, time in the water and just like keep an eye out for the pattern. So like we've gone into a comp where we haven't caught a fish in the pre-fish. All we had was a bite, and we went into that. There's bays in Timbra where we only had a bit of a sniff, and somehow in the comp you seem to turn that sniff into 4 or 5 fish and get away with it. So that's probably it for me. Is that there's just try and read the dam the best you can leading into it, and go from there.
And I suppose information's more freely available now. Like you can, jump on Facebook, those sorts of things, see what everybody's using, all the new techniques. There's a whole lot more than what we were using as well. Like, it used to be, you can't substitute time on the water, but now it's also, you can jump on your phone, jump on the computer, that sort of thing as well. But at the end of the day, time on the water is what does it.
Well, all I'm saying is everyone fishing that event is thanking God that you two guys aren't there banging bags like that, because that is an ABT classic event.
It was certainly special. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
If you're Mark Healy, you don't just live on the water. You live for it. You get up, get your shades, grab a spear, grab a boat, grab a friend. Okay, take a breath. Hold it. Hold it. Here, hold this. Go, go, whoa. All right, now find something to jump on. It's probably too high. It wasn't too high. Time to get going? Time to keep going. How's that feel? And now this is living. For those who need water to breathe, Costa sunglasses.
Well, there you go. I don't know if you're not excited by that recounting of that ABT Classic event, you're not a fisherman, you should be watching something else on Facebook or YouTube tonight. That's awesome. Those guys absolutely smashed them that night. Let me remind you of the comps we're running tonight. We want to know where you're from. Put it in your comments, either Facebook or YouTube. We've got a great pack of ABT merch coming out to someone from somewhere. At the moment, I think we've got viewers internationally as well as from Australia. And a shout out to, I think Richard Robson's shouted out from New Zealand. Normally Mike Sutcliffe is watching from Asia, somewhere in Singapore, I think. We want you to name the trophy. We've got plenty of great names coming through, but make sure, also Nicole's picking the winner for all this, so a little bit of sucking up to my producer here, Nicole Smith, is going to be very helpful to your cause. And remember, you spell her name Nicholle. So if you're going to suck up, make sure you spell a name right. Also, we want to know if you've got an event that sticks in your mind as being an ABT Classic event. Let us know what it is. Someone suggested Peter and Zach's event at Faust a few years ago where they caught about 30 meteries for the night. That would definitely count. We're going to chase those boys up and get them onto a future show. But any other BREAM, bass or barra events that you think are classic, let us know all about them, because I can't remember them all for the last 20 years, but maybe you can. We've still got a few segments to go tonight and still got plenty of time to enter those comps, so put the comments down below and we will check them all out. Our next angler that we have on is, I think, Australia's most nomadic angler. He's Tom Deere from South Australia. Let's watch the segment we filmed with him this week. All right, we have tracked him down, Australia's most nomadic tournament fisherman, Tommy Deere. Explain where you are at the moment. You've got a little fan in the corner of the picture there. Where are you sitting?
Yeah, I'm sitting in my motorhome down on Boyne Island, just out of Gladstone.
And I think you would be well known as Australia's most nomadic tournament fisherman. You made a really smart decision early in COVID. That was, if you're going to get isolated anywhere, let's get isolated somewhere cool like in Queensland. Was that a conscious or a lucky decision?
Yeah, no, we did some serious thinking about it, because like we'd been down in Tassie, and then we had the bass tournament at St Clair in New South Wales. Yep. And there was a bit of a hint that borders would be closing, and we thought, will we go back to SA? And then they shut the borders really quick. And the idea was, well, we normally spend winter up in Queensland anyway, so let's get up there. And we came across the border in March, I think about 6 hours before the closure. So it was a good idea. Yeah.
And you've been there ever since?
Yeah, been here ever since March, and yeah, it's been interesting. Done a lot of fishing. I mean, I've got a new boat, as most people would know, and I picked up this boat in SA in November. Yep. And I think at last look on the hours clocked up, it was something like 260 hours.
Wow, that's cool, because the normal solid recreational use is about 100 hours a year. So you're doing well on that front. And I think your fishing is actually, it's actually benefiting from it, because you've done a few events. You've done Wivenhoe and Somerset in the Bass Pro. You've done Bribey in the BREAM, and you seem to be catching fish. You're feeling good about life at the moment? You're feeling good about your fishing?
Yeah, I do. A couple of years ago, I mean, I was saying that, I'm about over this. I'd almost had enough, and then things started to change. And I think some of that comes down to yourself, Steve. And the way the ABT is run these days, and it just gave me a new lease on life, and I started enjoying the fishing a lot more and not taking it as seriously. People might look at it now and say, "Oh, you've done a hell of a lot of pre-fishing up here," but there's a couple of tournaments where I didn't do any pre-fishing at all and just went out and enjoyed it. And, I've been getting, more often than not a top 10 finish, which is, yeah, good for me.
That's good, and it helps pays the bills as well. And I notice we give away the cameras for the event. So if you're up in the top 10, you normally get offered a camera. You've been very willing to get the camera, set it up, take the time, make it look good, and you can see that reflected in the highlights that we do each night. You are enjoying your fishing and you're having some good conversations with your non-boater, and we really appreciate the efforts you go to do the who shares wins thing. There's no real secret techniques out there. There's just different attitudes and different spots and different strategies for the day. So we really appreciate the fact that you're embracing that coverage of the event, which I think is getting better and better as we go.
Yeah, it is. Like that. The coverage is fantastic, and you're not giving away that much by letting people see where you're at and what you're doing. I mean, because the people that know, they know anyway. They can just. That's right. So there's no secrets really amongst the tournament guys, I wouldn't think.
No, especially in a bass tournament, because especially at places like Wivenhoe, where we had a 6-knot limit, you couldn't really get too far away from the pack in that joint. That was it was really interesting to see how those two events played out. Wivenhoe, I don't know if we hit it early or late, but the fishing was just a little bit off. But then Somerset, the fishing really came good through the weekend. how have you enjoyed that difference between the bass and the brim tournaments? Bass guys aren't afraid of getting up close and personal with each other, whereas the brim guys tend to spread out a little bit more. Is that your experience fishing those two circuits?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened. I mean, you know, I did have an experience sort of recently doing a bass team event, and I think I'd just come from Bribey, where I'd done the brim. So I was in this bass team event, Bridget was fishing it with me and a new lad. And, there was a couple of bass boats there, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just sort of sneak through here and continue my fishing. And it was a little bit unusual in that comp. I mean, it wasn't an ABT comp. And one bloke just yelled out to me, and I thought, well, mate, you can't hit me with a lure, even a spoon. And like that was a little bit weird. And I just said, well, I'm moving through. How far do you want me to go? And he didn't answer, and he just up and left. That was a little bit weird. But, yeah, I mean, the brim guys will generally don't like being close to anyone, and the bass guys, depending on the bite, really, with bass, they're quite okay. You can almost sort of jump to another boat and vent a fish for somebody and that sort of stuff.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, that happens in bass. It wouldn't happen in brim.
Definitely. You mentioned Bridget there. Bridget's a real lifesaver for us. She's great on the computer, and she helps a lot behind the scenes. And a big thanks for bringing Bridget along, because she gives Nicole some great support behind the scenes, and what it really means is that if people are watching at home and want to have those live scoreboards on the side of the live weigh-ins, if there's not someone there like Bridget entering them, it doesn't really happen. So a big thanks from ABT to your partner for who obviously gives you great support, but gives us great support as well.
Yep. She not only gives me support, she's my manager. So,
really? Okay. Do you get some pep talks sometimes before the tournaments about how you need to lift your performance?
Well, like part of my attitude change, I think, has been down to her as well. She'll just say, look, just chill out and, just go out there and catch 10 fish and just whatever happens sort of thing. So, and if you don't catch 10, she says, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Just go out and enjoy yourself. So every once in a while, she'll just bring me back to earth on that. So, no, she's pretty handy to have around.
I hear rumours that in the teams tournaments that she fishes, and in pre-fishes she actually touches you up sometimes and you catches a few more fish.
Yeah, it's strange. When the fishing is really tough, so either in the brim or the bass, it doesn't really matter. When the fishing is really tough, she will touch me up every time. But when it's a normal sort of bite, I sort of come to the fore then. But when it's tough, she's spot on the money.
Mate, tell us, given that the people that don't know you and don't know the van, give us a little bit of a rundown on what you're travelling and living in at the moment. Tell us how the system works.
Okay, so I used to travel around in a Toyota Hi-Ace pop top, and that was a little bit crowded for the two of us. But now I've got a Iveco daily van. It's a 5.6 metre van. It's got everything in it except the shower. We got an external hot shower. It's got a cooker and fridge and all that sort of stuff. And that tows my my boat, my Stacer Assault Pro tournament. And, just live in this, and we go from place to place, and, it makes life pretty easy, down in Tasmania or through Victoria and then up to Queensland. And I built this one 2.5 years ago. The first time I'd ever built anything, and contracted out some of the tough jobs like the carpentry and that sort of stuff. But the rest you can do yourself. So, yeah.
That's awesome, mate. Now, do you have problems storing your gear? Because you're in Gladstone at the moment. There are brim, bass and barra within a couple of hours of you, and we'll talk about the fishing in a little bit, but how do you carry all the gear for all those different species at once? Are you pretty frugal with your gear, or do you just manage to find a place to stuff it in?
No, I'm pretty frugal. I sort of bring what I think I need, and then I bring a spares box. But with this new boat, I could have brought everything with me. I've got a storage shed down in Panbula, New South Wales, which holds all the rest of the gear. But no, I've got plenty of bass gear, limited brim gear, and limited barra gear. But you don't have to limit it. You can. I don't know. Someone like yourself probably fills up a whole truck, but Yeah.
Can only use one at a time,
really,
mate.
What's that?
You can only use one at a time.
Well, that's it. And, you know, the thing is, if you have, say, like a day box when you go out fishing, so if you think, well, these are all the lures I want to try today, you end up, you know, having about 50 or 60 lures in just one box. And when you work it out, you cannot sample every one of those lures in a day. So we tend to, take too many, way too many. And it just, on the day, usually you're only using, you know, maybe 3 lures and that's it, 3 rods.
Yep.
Yeah. So, no, I cut it back a bit.
Good stuff. Now, you've been on, of course, we're coming up to the great time of year where we do the Gladstone BREAM event sponsored by Mercury. We do the Venom Rods BARRA Australian Open on Awoonga, and then we go straight to the Queensland Open at Kania, sponsored by Rapala. You're not doing all 3, but you're having a crack at 2 of them, aren't you? And tell us about how the arenas have been fishing. We don't need you to give us any secrets away, but what are we going to expect in Gladstone and Kania?
Well, Gladstone, I was here a couple of weeks ago, just for a couple of days, and it was a struggle. I think I caught 1 legal bream, and I didn't really catch any bycatch at all. And then, you know, the last few days here, it's totally changed. You know, the bycatch of grunder and perch and those blasted, whatever they are, pike, you know, they're a pain in the neck. But, you know, the bycatch has increased, and also, you know, the catch of yellowfin bream has increased. So, you know, if it keeps going like this, you know, it's a upward curve. It should fish really well. But, you know, the tropics, I don't understand them at all. So we'll wait and see. But, you know, it's on the right track, but, you know, the wind has been a bit of a nightmare. It's been blowing 25 kilometres an hour at least, sort of from the southeast every day. So I hope that doesn't happen. But you know, but Gladstone, yeah, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said, no, I don't want to fish it. But now, no, I'm looking at it thinking, yeah, it should be fine. Awoonga, well, I was out at Awoonga probably 2 weeks ago, and the water temp was 21 to 22 degrees.
Yep.
And I think I had 1 hook up straight in a hook on a soft plastic. And then we happened to meet Trevor Burgess at the boat ramp, and sadly that was I think the day before he passed away on the dam, and he actually gave us a few tips on where to fish and how to fish, and we went out and did that, and all of a sudden we started catching a few fish, you know, up to 95 centimetres. And then I went out to the dam last week just for a couple of days, and the water temperature had gone up a full degree or 2 degrees in the back of some of the bays. So it's now up to 22, 24, and I haven't been there for 3 or 4 days. So I expect it's even warmer than that now. So yeah, it's, you know, I'd say Awoonga's going to, again, it's sort of on the increase, so that should be good. Kania, I was out there about 3 weeks ago, and it was just sort of the usual sort of Kania, you know, spoons, plastics, blades. There were schools of 40 centimetre fish, there were schools of 44s, there were schools of 47s. So it just depended which school you got on. But the fish out there are really thin. So, but that was about 3 weeks ago. So I'm heading out there either today or tomorrow, and I'll have another look.
Awesome, mate. You are definitely living the dream, because I know there's a lot of guys that are sitting, especially the ones down in Victoria who are locked down, who are saying Tom Deere is living the life at the moment, mate. So we really appreciate that update. And it's great to see, you know, it was a tragedy with what happened to Trevor, but it's great to see his legacy living on. There are so many people that have come out and said, you know what, Trevor helped me get onto fishing Awoonga, and that legacy will last on. And tragic events, but you know, good to see that he had a positive impact on your life as well.
Yeah, it really touched Bridget, because, you know, she had a good long chat with him. And then, like, we didn't go out to the dam sort of the next night, but the following night we did, and he wasn't there. And we thought, well, that's strange. And then, we heard that, the night we weren't there was the problem.
Awesome, mate. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time in your van to join us. We look forward to catching up with you at the events. And we also know that you watch a bit of Lockdown Live when you're on the road as well. I think you've won a prize before from one of the competitions
I did.
you've run. So I hope it helps to keep you and everyone else who's watching, especially our brothers down in Victoria, just abreast with what's going on and what's happening in the ABT tournament scene. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome, Steve.
Hi, I lost a big fish earlier today. Wasn't using suffix. It was about this big.
Look, slow down there, cowboy, okay? A fish in the lost van, huh? You want your fish. Sorry, honey, that fish is gone.
Always use the best line, suffix 832.
I'll give you a little bit of a hint of what happens behind the scenes here at ABT Lockdown Live. While that ad was playing, that last suffix ad, somebody in this room was going, "You want your fish," and it wasn't me. Someone really likes the suffix ads here. You've still got a few minutes left to enter the competitions for tonight. Tell us where you're from. Give us a name for the trophy. We are going to draw them in the next segment and come back to you with the winners of those, both winning some of the merchandise. The next segment we've got, of course, we have my brother Tim Morgan. We got him into the office during the week to talk about how we've pivoted with the Bass Australian Opens, how it's split from one event, which would have been a couple of weeks ago at Glenbourne, to two events in two states. Let's catch up with him to see what the anglers all get.
If you're Will Flack, you don't just go fishing. You get up at 4 a.m., get your motor going. Get this motor going. Sun's up, shades up. Pick it, tie it, stretch it, haul it. Dang it. Let's try this school. Nope. Best restaurant ever. You were gonna be back by 3. 3-ish? 6-ish. Bonefish, 2 o'clock. Strip, strip, strip. Hit it, kiss it. That's it. Okay, your turn. And now it's a fishing trip. For those who need water to breathe. Costa sunglasses.
So with ABT Lockdown Live, I think we've got a new record set tonight. I think your third appearance, is it, Timmy, on Lockdown Live, or is it maybe your fourth?
You must be hard up.
Well, you are heavily involved because you do work for Rapala VMC Australia. We have the Suffix Bass Pro Series. We have the Rapala Australian Opens happening. And of course, we have the Costa BREAM Series, and you guys do Costa as well. So if there's 3 pies, you got your fingers all in all of them at the moment. And look, post-COVID, tackle sales going pretty well at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. We're pretty lucky on the East Coast, most of the way up the East Coast, that we can get out and fish. I still feel sorry for Victorian brothers, but yeah, no, it's been really good. And I think the fact that no one can travel overseas and that everyone's looking to travel at home, and I think the really good thing for the fishing industry is that we're getting a lot of new people to the sport. So hopefully it'll flow into the tournaments in years to come.
Yep, we like that. And inherently, of course, fishing is an extremely social distancing pastime. Even in a tournament, everyone tries to find their own spot. You've got to be 30 metres away from the next guy, and that's much more than the government recommended limit. Now, of course, one of the consequences of COVID regulations has been, firstly, yes, Victoria has been chopped off. No one wants to know Victoria anymore, but also the Queensland border's shut, which means we've had to have a few changes. Biggest one right now is that the Australian Open we had to cancel last weekend down at Glenbourne. Fishing was fairly tough down there here, so maybe by the time that the New South Wales and the Queensland Opens happen next month, we do have an event for the Queenslanders and the New South Welshmen. The fishing may be a little bit better. So, look, such a great event last year. You didn't make it because the wheel fell off your trailer or something last year, didn't it? But a great event all up last year. Plenty of anglers and plenty of fish.
Yeah, I got there the year before as well, and it was great fishing then as well. So I was really disappointed last year not to do it, but this year, even though it's great that you guys at ABT are running the 2 events because they're 2 great dams, it's given the New South Wales guys and the Queensland guys, something to go and fish towards, and I love Kania. I'm looking forward to get back there.
Of course, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. Now, one of the things about the open event is, one, it's an open event. Anyone can come, put their money on the table and participate in that 100% payback that we pay back. So if we collect $50,000 in entry fees, there's going to be $50,000 in cash given away. But Rapala always comes to the party and provides plenty of swag. Swag standing for stuff we all get. So when you sign in, and of course we don't have a big briefing anymore, we have a sign in the afternoons from 2 p.m. at both locations. Down at New South Wales, it'll be at Nick's shop at Aberdeen. In Queensland, it'll just be near the ramp at Kania. You get some stuff, and Timmy, you've brought some of it in. I want you to run through some of the cool Rapala stuff that you're giving away to all the people, but also some of the prizes that we've got for the events.
Well, a lot of the time when you get stuff, it's stuff that, you know, the suppliers want to get rid of and things like that. But like at Rapala, we like to give stuff that you'll use. So probably one of our favourite lures bass fishing at the moment is the Rapala V-Blade. Yep. So it's a cross sort of between a blade and a lipless crankbait. Really good on the bass in the impoundments up here, down at Hins and everywhere like that. You can fish it through the timber pretty well. It's pretty snag resistant, but also in open water. You can fish it all the way from burning the edges down to 50 foot if you want to fish it that deep. Great lure. We've sold a heap of them. Feedback's really good. And I've heard of a few people getting fish over 50, but I've got a 51 fork length out of Ivanhoe on it as well. So very good lure in some really good colours.
And they're a brand new lure on the market. Like, this is literally only came out a month or two ago, and the sales have been really good.
A couple of months ago, and the sales that blew us away. We had to air freight some more in, which is pretty hard at the moment, but we air freighted a heap more in, and yeah. So results have been really good all the way from saltwater to freshwater, but bass really love them.
And thinking back, I'm pretty sure we launched that lure on Lockdown Live.
We did launch that lure on Lockdown Live, and yeah, so like I said, it's been really, really good. So you know, it's something a little bit different for Rapala too. So it's really good working with them because this is a US one, which just happens to work really well on Australian fish species. But we've got some new lures coming out within the next month that are very Australian oriented. We're getting a lot of input into them. We're getting a lot of input into the colours, which never really happened before. So watch this space, because over the next 12 to 18 months, we've got some really good lures coming out for Rapala, which are going to be good for bream, bass and barra.
Awesome. So we've got that one. Tell us about the next one that everyone gets.
So also a new lure for this year as well. So pretty new lure is the Ripstop. So this is going to be a cracking jerkbait up around the edges. Not a super deep diver, only get down to about 6 foot. My favourite colour, clown there. But this has got the little boot on the back, so it's really, you can really jerkbait it quickly. But with that boot on the back, it's like having an anchor on it. So you can really jerk it along that snag, along that weed edge, in front of that, and keep it in front of the fish's face for a long period of time.
And that's what jerkbaits are all about. It's all about attracting the attention of the fish and then leaving it in the strike zone as long as possible. And I think the colder the water, the longer you want to leave it in front of the strike zone there. So the Ripstops are great. Yeah, I think they're an American bait, but again, those sizes and colours are Mickey Mouse for Australian bass.
That's right. And then in both of the impoundments we're fishing, the New South Wales and Queensland Open, one of everyone's favourite way to catch a fish is on the surface.
Yep.
So this is the old skitter prop. So been around forever. We've got a few new colours, which our Southeast Asian friends did, and we jumped in on the run with them. But my favourite for bass is a dark colour, so its silhouette's really good. But we'll have these out there as well. So, you know, I've caught some great bass on those. They're great for jacks and everything as well. So balsa, I really like with this one here. It's a balsa lure, very, very natural. You can fizz it really, you know, aggressively if you're fishing for jacks and trevally and things, but for bass, you can work it nice and slowly, supple, nice little thing,
Yep.
and they love it, so they'll come up and smash it.
Now, there are, I think, very few ABT anglers who have won ABT events on both impoundments, but you're one of those. And from memory, you've won a Glenbourne event on a top water before.
Yes, well, I got my kicker fish for the event was on a top water, a little popper, and look, it's been very good for me in the past, but it's also been my Achilles heel, because sometimes you'll fish it too long, and you should have been doing something else. But quite often, the top water, you'll get the big fish bite as well. So it's a calculated risk, but definitely I'll be throwing at Kania top water to start the day with, and if I can catch a couple of fish on it, I'll definitely be throwing it in the comp.
Now let's talk about the time, your most recent ABT win was at Kania, and you did lots of your damage with jerkbaits. Which one in particular?
It was actually the same colour as this. We didn't have these ones out when I won it there, but it was a shadow wrap shad, 9 centimetre, a little bit deeper in the body profile than that, but that was the main lure. Then to the jack deep after that. In the mornings, that's what's how I got my fish, and I suppose it came back to probably the first time I fished Kania with you, probably over 20 years ago, when we fished it on a winter's day, and we actually were catching on Rapala husky jerks back then. And everyone a couple of years ago when I won it was spoon crazy. So we'd just been to Banduma, was one on spoons. Everyone was fishing spoons the whole way. We found some suspended fish in about 7.5 foot, caught some on the jack deeps, the smaller lure, then went into the bank, cast a bigger jerkbait to the bank, caught one, caught another one, went down further, caught another one, thought, that's me. That's what I'm doing. I don't want to throw spoons.
Awesome. So you're actually going to be fishing the Queensland version of these events. Of course, us Queenslanders we can travel to New South Wales, but we can't get back again. So you're going to fish the Kania round of this event, and you're doing it in one of the smallest boats in the field. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's on the school holidays, and we're taking a couple of weeks off with the family, so we're going to be doing a little bit on the coast, a little bit at Mondrian Dam, but then up to Kania as well. So, look, it's an individual event. It's a small dam. I've got a little cross-country 4-1 with a 15 on the back, so, at most, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get to the other end of the dam. And hopefully the fish are hard into timber, and all you guys in big bass boats won't be able to get to them.
Well, there you go. That's the plan. And it's interesting to see how it goes. Now, there's some great gift packs for competitors there. So anyone fishing the open event, doesn't matter whether you're in Queensland, New South Wales, can pick up some of that swag at the sign-in. Remember, we're not having briefings. It's a sign-in. All of that information on the ABT site. Now, another bit of information. We always go to good ABT sponsored dealers to do our sign-ins. It's going to be Nick Price's shop down at Aberdeen. There's no one at the lake at Kania, but at Gladstone for the Gladstone BREAM event, it's going to be the complete angler at Gladstone. Liam and the crew there, they've got a shop there. It's full of sort of BREAM bass and barra gear. You can buy anything you like there. And it's a real pleasure for us, I suppose, to go and expose our anglers to the local store, because as you and I know, going to a local store, you're always going to find some local lures that you need because you didn't even know about them. Liam, of course, he's a Costa dealer. It's the Costa BREAM series event up at Gladstone. Tell us how much you really, really want to fish the BREAM, the Barra, and then the bass event. But in reality, you're going to be doing the school holiday, and the bass event.
Oh, I'm doing the school holiday. My wife organised it all, but she goes, hang on, we're going a week on the coast, 4 days to Mondrian, and then to Kania. How did this happen? How good's that? So I will be doing a fair bit of fishing. I won't be up at the Gladstone BREAM event or the Awoonga BARRA event, but hopefully I'll be catching a few big BREAM and a few big Barra in the lead up to Kania.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming in this afternoon. Again, shout out to all the guys down in Victoria there, and make sure that you check out all of the latest Rapala gear when you're in your tackle store next. Well, there you go. How awesome is it to have such great sponsors for Australian Bass Tournament anglers who are fishing all of those open events? No matter what you are, there's plenty of prizes and there's plenty of swag at those bigger events that we can all get. So a big shout out to all of the ABT sponsors. They're all bloody legends and they help us do what we like. The next segment we got now is sponsored by another one of those great ABT sponsors, sponsored by Mercury. It's called Show Us Your Boat, and we still have this section open. I think this may be the last one that we have in the can at the moment. Show Us Your Boat, which is powered by Mercury. We'll send you a little bit of Mercury merchandise, but at the end of the ABT Lockdown Lives, no matter when COVID finishes, Mercury's going to give one of the segments that they pick out a great free Mercury outboard cover. Now, of course, Mercury outboard covers are available for every single Mercury in the range. So no matter what Mercury you've got, they've got a cover to suit it, and someone's going to win one of those. So let's catch up with the Victorian fishing legend, Dougie Fair, and he's going to take us through his beast of a boat, which is powered by Mercury.
G'day, my name's Doug Fair, an ABT angler. Some of you have seen my boat around the traps, especially with the Victorian and recently the Tasmanian rounds. Morgo asked me to talk about the boat and the motor, of course. The boat is a Boston Whaler, Dauntless 200. It's a 20-foot boat, maximum road width of 7.5 feet, I think, 2.5 metres, that's it. And it's a very heavy boat. It weighs a little over 2 tonne, and that gives me not only huge stability but a great power to run through some uncomfortable choppy seas. However, at rest, it's a boat that only draws 8 inches of water. So it means I can fish, say, the Mitchell Cut, just gently glide through it. Sometimes you make a mistake and you might have to reverse, but it draws very little water. So anything a modern bass boat can get into, this can get into. It's powered by this Mercury Verado. It's a 225 horsepower engine. It's a straight 6, 2.6 litre fuel injected. But what gives it its amazing power is the supercharger they bolt to this. It is sensational. It will get me out of the hole so quickly, in particular through that 4-blade Revolution 17-pitch propeller. The motor itself, though, it will hum along at flat-out speed, or you just pull it back a little bit when you've trimmed the girl up, and you'll still sit on your... I don't have the speeds of the bass boats, of course, but I can do a maximum of about 47 knots, which is not too bad for a big girl like this, I can tell you. But she is a really good, comfortable boat with this brilliant motor. Now, inside the boat, there is a bucket load of room. I'm just going to get up and show you this, and while I do that, you'll just have a look at the side of the boat. It's sitting on a Savage trailer, incredibly comfortable bed for the boat to relax in, torsion bar suspension, and it really is a comfortable, safe trailer to tow. Up here at the workstation, you've got a seat comfortable for 2. Underneath the seat is 1 live tank, that's 100 litres. And then up the front, in front of the console, is a second live tank. That's about 70 litres, I think it is. So it really is good. If you're working ABT, you've got non-boater fish, boater fish. Really excellent thing. I have, which is really wonderful, a centre console cabin to store things. Now, you'll see there's a lot of junk in there at the moment, but it gives me the ability of clearing the deck of all the tackle bags that I don't need, and I can lock them all away, and she's gone. It's lovely and clean and tidy. Up at the helm, as I've got the power steering. The Mercury is fitted with the AMS power steering system, and that is an amazing thing. It's like when you have, I suppose, if you had a stern drive engine, you have power steering on it, and you don't know how good it is until you use it. This is the same. So I've got that. I've got a Pro Trim adjuster to trim the motor out. I'm running a Simrad NSS 3 12-inch sounder through a live transducer, a 3-way transducer. Excellent vision, absolutely excellent vision. I can, and I love shallow water, and I can look at fish at a very far distance, as was demonstrated a while ago by another ABT member. I can find fish like at Marlow across the flat water there. I can find fish a long way away. So I've got that on board. Up the front, of course, the main fishing tool I've got is my motor guide, and this one's a 36 volt, 105 pound or 110 pound electric motor. It is wonderful. I've had an 80 pound most of the boat's life, and I've recently gone to this 36 volt unit, and when I'm in a real rough water scenario, once again enjoying fishing the flats, and I want to get away without starting the big motor, this is working a real treat. I've got a Lowrance 12-inch carbon up on the bow, and I run a separate transducer in the water from. Normally, people put a transducer on the base of their electric motor. The final piece of the puzzle is my talon anchoring pole. It's a 12-footer. It's been a fantastic addition to holding me in my shallow waters, in particular shallow waters. Whenever we hook up while we're drifting along in a shallow area, we put the talon down straight away. That way we're not fighting a fish over while we're drifting over unfished waters. We're fighting that fish within the zone that we catch it, hopefully extending the amount of room we've got to give us productive water. That's my boat. It's a brief discussion. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you when we get out of our COVID-19 jail sentence.
So a big thanks there to Dougie Fair for persevering with the technology and getting us that video. He actually filmed it quite a while ago, but we eventually got it through to us and got it edited up. There was a little bit of a lapse in the middle, but Dougie, thank you very much for showing us your Mercury Verado 225 horsepower powered boat. We see it a lot down south in ABT. I've got a few competition winners here. I know a few of you are probably waiting for this. Where are you from, guys? Now, Nicola's got a very soft heart, and she has picked a couple of Victorian guys to do this. David Eccleston, you commented on Facebook that you were from Melbourne. I'd like you to get in touch with us with your shirt size, so we'll include one of the ABT shirts into the pack. So David, get to us. She picked another one as well, Josh Henry from Geelong. You commented on Facebook as well. Josh, send us a message with your mailing details, or we can send you one. We'll sort it out afterwards, and we'll get you some ABT merchandise. Now, the other competition we had tonight was to name this fella here, and we had a bit of a hint what it should be called at, but Paul Langley, you were the first at suggesting that maybe we should call this fella here Trevor. We're going to run that past the family actually and make sure they're happy calling it Trev. That's going to be the name on the bottom of the barra there to remember Trevor Burgess, who passed only recently. So congratulations those guys that entered the tournaments. Our closer for tonight, and thank you very much to everyone for joining us for episode 14 of ABT Lockdown Live. It is a segment from a live bait junkie, Daiwa bait junkie testing booth. Hold on a sec. What have we got from the producer? Oh, I have got one more segment. All right. Hold that bait junkie thing. I have got a top segment here. Let's start again. Let's go to my top 5 ABT captures of all time. Live narrated. I want to see them up on the screen here because I can't see them at the moment, Nicole. Let's bring you 5 of my favourite ABT captures from the Garmin verbs that we put on people's boats. Let's roll them. Now, number 5 was the first time that Simon Goldsmith really learned how to use his mobile phone and Facebook Live and reached tens of thousands of people jumping on Graham Franklin's boat when he's fishing the bridge in the Swansea Channel there at Lake Macquarie. And you can see him here. This is live, shot on his phone, jiggling a CRANKA crab down deep, and just donkey after donkey jumping onto Franco and his non-boater Neil Kelly's line. Now, eventually, of course, Graham Franklin won this event. Neil Kelly, his non-boater, won in the non-boaters, and these guys took advantage of a spawning run of bream in November in Lake Macquarie that was ridiculous. There were boats fishing basically every pylon all the way across the bridge, but the first place in this tournament went to Graham, and then Simon would just jump off onto the next boat, which was Jamie McEwen, who came second in that event. And I think Graham won that event with over 13 kilos of yellowfin bream for 15 fish and took that grand final home very nicely. It was great to see Graham with such a great bag of fish. And here is just another of the one after another string of absolute donkeys that he caught. He was catching them on heavily weighted CRANKA crabs and catching fish like this, which you and I, of course, are really happy to say would be our kicker for the day, but this was just another one. Absolute horse of a yellowfin. And Simon was just on there. He broadcast for about an hour with these guys catching fish after fish. Now, of course, the ABT BREAM Grand Final is a shared weight event, which means doesn't matter if Neil catches it, doesn't matter if Franco catches it. these guys both get the weights. Now, Graham came in with like over 5 kilos of bream on one of the days. Didn't do it, I think, for every single one of the days, but it was an absolute epic capture, and it was great to do all of that stuff live. I think Simon only had to Franco only had to go about 20 metres to pick Simon up from the bank, and he had a great time up there. Of course, Simon now not working for ABT, working for Dyer. Let's look at number 4. Now, I know a lot about this one. This is when I run the camera in the back of my boat, and I think the commentary goes something like, we all wonder what would happen if you throw your crankbait up the stupidest little crack possible. This is exactly what happens. And I had to be very conscious in this one to make sure that my foot didn't go out of the boat. The rules are you can't get out of the boat to land a fish. Of course, that rule's made so that people don't dive down 20 feet, get hooked up in a snag with a barra and die. But I made sure that my non-boater here, Sean, I said, make sure my foot doesn't leave the boat, mate. So he whacks his big paw on that, and we scoop out a 32 centimetre fork-length bream amongst a pile of those blue catastylus jellyfish in that stupid spot. That's the Karua Bridge over the Karua River in Port Stephens. If you're driving from Brisbane to Sydney, you drive straight across it. My tip is, if you ever get a chance to chuck a crankbait in it, have a crack, because it's full of big fish like that. That fish caught on a crankbait. Of course, this venue at Port Stephens, the grand final location. Number 3. Number 3 happened this year. Look at this. Bang. That officially is the quickest I've ever seen a bass jump onto a topwater in all of ABT history. Matty Langford there, he won this event at Lake St Clair. It was the event that happened just before the first COVID border shutdowns happened, and he developed a great pattern finding those fish on the Garmin live scope under the shag trees, catching them on topwaters. That one was a mega bass, one of the ciglet cicadas with an extra hook on it. Again, shared weight, boater and non-boater stoked with fish like that on topwater. Let's check out number 2 in the classic catches. And this one here, you probably have all seen it before, under the Manly ferry dock when you were actually allowed to fish it. And who else but Captain Risky saying, I wonder what would happen if I skip my Eco Gear Aqua up under there. Well, this is what happened. Something with big yellow fins, blue lips grabs it. And Hickson knows enough to free spool the line, go and chase the fish, get the fish out, net the fish, put the boat out, and only then worry about getting it out of the fish's mouth. Now, this was in, I think, an Australian Open, and there you go. Check out another big blue lip cracker to the man himself. He drives at 200 miles an hour and he fishes at 200 miles an hour. And of course, my number 1, I love this one. This is in 2018 when James Howarth won the Gold Coast Bream qualifier and tripped over his HDS 16 on the front of the boat. Yep, there he goes. No, well, if you know James Howarth, you know that shit like that happens to James all the time. He decided to put a 16-inch sounder on the front of his boat, and I think the story may be that he got pulled in by the bream, but I reckon he just goofy-footed it, tripped over the 16 and went in. Now, the skillful part of this whole capture is that James manages to land the fish and get in, and the top of his hoodie isn't even wet. Like, that's crazy. James, we know recently you had a bit of an accident and lost your boat due to fire. We should have seen it coming when stuff like this happens to you in the tournaments. And anyway, it's a fish. It's only about 28 centimetres, but it was enough to get him across the line in this event. Give us a double shacker, James. We know you like it, mate. We know you can multitask. There it is. James brings that fish in, brings in 3 kilos for the day and wins the tournament and has a free bath. So there you go. That's what stuck out to us as my top 5 highlights over the last 3 or 4 years when we've been running the Garmin action cams. If you've got one that you think we missed, let us know in the comments below. We'll dig it out and run it on the show. Bream, bass or barra, we don't mind so long as people are falling in, catching fish or having fun. That is what makes a classic moment to me. Now, let's have one quick ad from the sponsors. Or however many ads we have left, and after that we're going to go to the we call it the room clear at the end. It's a segment about the new Daiwa bait junkies which hit stores this week. We took them for a live test down the Gold Coast, and I spent this time here just telling people how I like to rig them. We're going to catch you up in another month's time for ABT Lockdown Live number 15. From Steve Morgan here and from our production behind Nicole, she's waving at you. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we're going to see you at an event soon. Rightio, welcome to the Gold Coast in southeast Queensland, and a especially big welcome to me mates in Victoria who have probably not got the same view as I have here, maybe the inside of their four walls. We are feeling for you down there, brothers, and we're doing something a little bit different today. I've done probably, I don't know, 70 or 80 live streams from tournaments. So I thought, I've got some stuff here to test. It's the new Daiwa Bait Junkie soft plastics here. Little secret package came up from Daiwa during the week, and we thought, you know what, rather than just give you all the curated, no problems happened, everything's awesome, they catch a fish every cast sort of deal, why don't we give you a live version of what's going to go on? So we put in at the Gold Coast. It's a fine day, it's a pretty small tide, and it's right at the bottom of the tide, so it's not ideal tides. Blowing about a 10 knot northwester. It's probably not the ideal wind for the Gold Coast either. But I went to the local tackle store yesterday, and this is how serious I'm about this. I actually bought 3 packs of great ABT and Fishing Monthly Advertiser TT jig heads there. I've got a hidden weight system. I've got some jig head ones. And we're going to give these Bait Junkie plastics a run. I've got 2 sorts. I've got the grub, which I admit I've never actually fished before. I've got 3 colours of the grub. The grubs, I've got the Mudblood UV. I've got this one, which is Pearl Gudgeon. And I've got this one, which looks sensational. It's the Bloodworm UV. So I'm going to fish those ones on some jig heads today. And then I've got one I had fished a little bit before because I had some of the pre-production samples. I've got the minnows, and I've got them in AU, this colour here. I've got them in this one called Oil Flash, and that's one I've used in the Queensland Open and a few tournaments before. In one of the videos we shot for Daiwa when they had their 2020 product launch, and then this one here, which is Wakasagi, sort of more of a bass colour, but we'll see how it goes on the bream today. Now, what I've got to do is I'm pretty unprepared, and I'm unprepared on purpose. I've got 3 rods there, braid with leader rods that I rigged up to fish Mulga on the weekend. Mulga on the weekend was pretty windy and we didn't do much fishing there, so I've got them. They've got the right leaders on, but I'm going to rig these ones up, and we're going to start here at a pretty popular Gold Coast place. It's called the Trawlers. You probably know it if you saw the Hobie World's kayak fishing. Pretty popular spot. You would, if you followed the Queensland Open, you would have heard Blake O'Grady caught 70 fish in here on the first day of the Queensland Open. I caught my first limit here in the first half an hour and moved on. But that was a different situation. That was when there were longline boats in there unloading their catch and washing the decks off and getting the bream excited. So I think it's a little bit different today. It's going to be a lot tougher. I don't see any longline boats in there at all. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to spend a few minutes rigging up some lines, rigging up some tackle, show you what I'm doing. We're going to fish the trawlers. We'll probably fish the bridge, the pool, TSS, and some pontoons going up the river. So I expect the live stream might go for about maybe 3 hours this morning. So if the boss can't hear you at work, get on the headphones and you can listen for the action. My hint is, have the audio on, listen for that sound. That's when something's really happening. And feel free to share it, join it. come back at lunchtime, see what's going on, and when we've sort of done the range of activities, we'll log off the day. It's not going to be a 7-hour live stream like my normal tournament, because it's 10:30 now, halfway through a normal tournament session, but we are going to go through and be quite information specific. Nicole Smith is behind the setup here. She is organising this stream and curating it, so thanks for spending a day away from the office, Nicole. I know you've got plenty to do, but she can actually follow on the Fishing Monthly page. If you've got any questions, maybe drop them on there, and I should be able to get to them during today, because I'm not panicking about catching a 5-fish limit. So let's start rigging up. I've got my first rod here as a Legit Designs wild side rod done by JML. It's got a dial with one of the new Certates on it. Let's pull off what I had on. I had an OSP Blitz on here, crankbait. I had dreams of crankbaiting some giants up in the trees at Muggera. But I'm going to turn that one, into a G-head rig plastic. So I'm going to pull out a TT Headlocks G-head. Headlock's important because this is the soft elastomer style plastic, which is really stretchy. You need that jointed or detached keeper on the jig head to keep these plastics up. I've got two sizes, a 1/16th and a 1/20th. I'll put the heavier one on this rod because it's the heavier rod, a 1/16th. I'm going to get cracking with it. I might rig a couple of grubs up on this one here. So let's start off by tying my standard knot. I've got some, I think this is about 5-pound leader. It's Yamatoyo Chinu Harris, which is my preferred one. I think it's the right blend of suppleness, invisibility, and importantly, abrasion resistance. Got a rod and a bit length of leader there, minus whatever I cut off before from the bass fishing. And I tie it on with just a locked half blood knot. Give it a bit of lubrication and away we go. So there's my jig head there, just the standard TT. It's actually a heavy wire out of the packet. I would have preferred a light wire, but they didn't have any in stock there yesterday. Always get the hook in the fish before you worry about if they're going to bend and break your hook or not. What have I done there? I told you this would be warts and all. That's all the tangles. So on this, I really like the look of this one here. This is the Bloodworm UV bait junkie right there. I'm going to pull one of those guys off and thread him on just like we do a normal plastic. Now you'll notice that these come in like a clamshell on the inside. So there's 8 grubs in a pack. I assume they'll retail for low teens or just over $10 or something like that. But that keeps this plastic, well, A, from touching your other plastics, but also keeps it in good nick when you pull it out. So there you go, it's one of the production samples. The pre-production samples I had, man, they were sticky. But these ones, I was talking to Tommy Slater today, and we're going to talk to Tommy a bit later today. We're going to dial him into this live stream. We're going to talk to Tommy about the development process of these baits. But this stuff real soft. It's real stretchy. It floats in the water. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the similar plastics on the market. There's been over the years snapbacks made out of this. The guys that made the Terminator soft plastics made them. Z-Man make a lot of their plastics out of it. I think Z-Man make all their plastics out of this, and Dyer have chosen that same material. So pretty simple. I'm not the world's best plastic rigger, but it's going to go on there. I'm going to pull it up over the keeper. That'll be the first rod rigged up for today. I'm not going to be shy. It's got its own scent in there, and I'll probably add maybe some S-Factor or something during the day as well. So that's number one there. Looks the goods. That tail seems to be flicking around a lot in the breeze. It's actually got a line along the top of the plastic there. It sort of tells you where you can pull the plastic out if you want it to be straight up or straight down. I'm not really concerned about a lot of that stuff, but I went on the line because I felt like I had to toe the line. Let's get the next one rigged up. The next one will be, what do we got on there? Which is the heaviest? They're both pretty light leaders. I think they're both 5 pound. Off comes the Arashi Spy Bait. Great spring bait for bass if they're suspending, especially if they're suspending shallow. And this one I'm going to put a lighter jig here. This is a 1/20th TT Headlocks with the number 1 heavy hook in it as well. So again, I would have got the light if I could. This one will be slightly lighter. We'll probably use this a fair bit for hitting up some pontoons a little bit later in the day. Tides today on the Gold Coast are actually pretty small. If you look at the tide chart, it's only half of the run that you would normally get. Doesn't mean it's not going to run. just means that it won't run as hard in some areas, and that actually might make this main river fishery a little bit easier to fish. So again, locked half blood knot there. Get to the point where I need glasses to do this, but I'll get away without it with this heavy 5-pound stuff. There we go. So we had a UV on. Let's put a darker one on this one. That one's called a mudblood UV. This one here, it's like a darker colour. Reminds me of the old Berkeley 2 grub. It's got a red fleck through it as well. So let me steal one out of the clamshell. Clamshell back in there. It is good having that lid on that clamshell. It sort of keeps all your grubs nice and neat. So let's do the same thing. I might rig this one the other way around. I'll rig it with tail pointing down. It's got some pretty cool red fleck in there. Don't know if you can hear in the background, but there's a jet ski giving something a solid workout. I'm expecting the motor to blow up at any time. Something about jet skiers, they like to do at least 6,000 or 8,000 RPM while the thing's on the trailer. It's got to be good for it. There you go, so it's not the world's best. This is indicative of how ordinary I'm at rigging these up. It's taken me a few attempts to get this. Hear the police siren? Maybe it's someone making a getaway, that noise. Let's give us another go at it. Just want that fat end to sit nicely over the headlocks. There you go, that one's looking better there. It's a little bit sticky, this plastic. I'll drop him in the water. Tail wants to stick to itself a little bit. There you go, she's ready to go now. Tail's getting curled up. We'll see if that fish is, once it's a bit wet, she lets go a bit. So there you go, second one on a jig head. That's a lighter jig head ready to go. This one's being fished on, anyone that watches my live stream is probably familiar with that rod. It's a 7'6" Nordic stage artist rod. Just to prove this isn't 100% dye, where there's a Shimano Stella on it, probably a 10-year-old 1000 FD Stella, rigged up with some Suffix braid and that 5-pound leader. So that's number 2. This is the third one I'm going to rig up, and this is, I really thank my mates from WA, particularly Graham Kazbasevich. If you're watching, he taught me how to do the WA rigged little swim bait. So it requires a hidden weight system, and this is a 1/16 number 1 hidden weight system hook. So I'm going to pull that out. It's not dead calm today. There's a little bit of a breeze going, which is actually probably pretty good for the fishing. And I'm going to put that on. I'm going to put it on. Let's try something I've never tried before. An AU coloured bait junkie. I'm going to shove it on that little Z-Man, not the little Z-Man, the little TT head there. The little shads, they keeps it nice, that double blister pack. I'm going to show you how we rig this up. So what was sitting on this rod, this is a Daiwa edging rod, which is like a yellowtail rod, quite withy on the tip. This one I think came from overseas somewhere. Off comes the bass vibe, and on goes the hidden weight system. So got a fire alarm going off in the background there. This is typical Gold Coast. If you haven't got helicopters, police sirens, burnouts, screaming schoolies, it's not really the Gold Coast, is it? So there you go, locked half blood knot, it goes on there. Now this is the interesting thing, I've got the bait there, I'm going to come a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. It's what I call it the WA rig. So I've got my hidden weight system on there. I want to take a little bite of it through whichever way the bottom side is. So that's the bottom side. I'm just going to take a little nip of it and out the bottom. I'm going to pull that because it's this elastomer plastic. It'll come right over the top. I'm going to wiggle it around until it lines up. I'm just going to push it straight through, laterally through the bait like that. So what happens is you end up with a bait where it's basically bottom weighted it'll wiggle. You can see here, it sits along the bottom. It'll actually sink horizontally. So anyone that knows, I like my aqua fishing, they sink horizontally. I reckon prawns swim horizontally. That's a pretty cool horizontal presentation. So that's the 3 rods we're going to use today. I'm going to juggle around some bits and pieces, I'm sure. I'm going to put these away so they don't blow away at the moment. And we're going to fish those trawlers over behind me to see exactly how we go with the new bait junkies. We can go on the floor. Let's go fishing. And you can check out the rest of that video on Fishing Monthly's YouTube channel.